What is your opinion of the military policy of don't ask, don't tell with allowing gays and lesbians to serve? Does this protect our country with the issue of national security? Michael and Kaimukee wants to know. What do you think McCain would say?
I think it's none of anybody's business. And I think he would support that based on the things that I read about him. And first of all, he supports the soldier. And he believes that once you decide to fight for your country, that it's his job as the master, as the head of United States, that he would support our military at all costs.
Thoughts?
Well, first off, speaking having served in the Army, I personally think the policy is a failure and doesn't work, and I think it should be gotten rid of. From Giuliani's perspective, Mayor Giuliani, I think, has clearly shown he can work with people from the gay rights community. I think, I'm not certain if he's actually ever taken a formal position on don't ask, don't tell, but I think as far as the effectiveness of our national security and making sure that our military is in tip-top shape, that is not, I think, a high priority. And again, that's my own personal commentary. I'm not certain that the Giuliani campaign has ever taken a formal position on it.
Dr. Paul was asked this question in one of the national debates, and his answer was that we don't get our rights by government. We don't get our rights because we're of a particular color or particular race or anything like that. We get our rights from God. They're natural rights or individual rights. We're not gay rights, we're not women's rights, there's not black rights, call it what you want. He says it in the military, and he served in the U.S. Air Force for 5 years, that it comes down to a question of conduct. If you have heterosexual misconduct, it needs to be dealt with appropriately. Likewise, if you have homosexual conduct that's inappropriate, it needs to be dealt with as well. So that's his view, and that's how he answered the question in the national debate.
This really is a Republican Party question rather than a presidential question, but I'll ask it nonetheless because it'll lead to another question I want to ask. Why is the Republican Party in Hawaii still like a sparring partner in a Harlem Globetrotters basketball game? Globetrotters don't lose, but they want the other team to give them a good contest. From Dave in Mo'iliili, who has lived in Hawaii for 35 years. Dave doesn't think Governor Lingle has changed the no-win attitude of the Republicans. Any thought on this?
Hey, we're a bunch of fighters, those that are left in the Republican Party. That
not patsies for the Globetrotters.
we believe that we can make Hawaii better, that we can make lower our taxes. We still believe, despite having the highest taxes in the nation, definitely caused by the 40 years of Democrats being in power, that we can achieve a livable life and a sustainable life that's affordable for the people of Hawaii. And so, despite all of the jumpers to the other side, you know, we don't want power. We want to change Hawaii and help people. And so we're not jumping to the other side. We're going to stay and fight.
Well, certainly I think the Republican Party in Hawaii, we're a little bit better than the sparring partner for the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, I think in the contest of ideas, and I think that's what's important here in our democracy, it's important that the public see and hear that there's not always necessarily just one monolithic one-size-fits-all voice coming from the majority caucus. On the other hand, I think the Republicans in the legislature, and Representative Pine is one of them, or for myself and the City Council, I think we do provide a counterbalance to the Democratic Party. Certainly, for myself personally, you know, I'm the only Republican right now in the Honolulu City Council, but I don't think you ask my colleagues on the council or the mayor that I'm completely irrelevant. And I think the Republican caucus does provide a valuable perspective to the people here in our state.
And that is we should remind our viewers, that's a nonpartisan election, but everyone knows.
But everyone knows where it is.
Someone calls in, most Americans are tired of politics as usual. Paul is our only hope for returning to a smaller federal government that the founders and authors of our Constitution intended. And the Iraq War is the only Republican candidate in step with the American people in Hawaii. Thank you for having Kent Snyder on your show. Andy and Mililani calls. Well, we're going to get rid of Kent in just a minute. I understand that Rudy Giuliani made the decision for firefighters to go into the second collapsing Twin Tower on 9/11. Is that an example of his management style and decision making? Charlie Na'alehu. I'm not sure that's true. Is that true?
I have to question the facts of whether or not that's entirely accurate. But I think if anybody, everybody remembers what an incredibly chaotic situation was in 9/11. And I think the record bears it out that Rudy Giuliani showed he was cool under pressure, that he handled an incredible crisis situation, certainly clearly one of the worst days in American history, very well. And I think you stack up Rudy Giuliani's record on 9/11 against anybody else's, he comes out very, very well. So I have no problem whatsoever supporting Mayor Giuliani and what he had done in his conduct on 9/11.
You know, we were talking about how any of the two leading Democrats wins against the leading against any of the Republicans. You point out it's a very small margin. On the generic side, it's quite a large margin, still is. But when you get the individual candidates, it goes it goes.
But as you pointed out a little bit earlier, I mean, polls are very much in flux. I mean, things change over time. I mean, Mike Huckabee, who the heck was he 2 months ago, right? So, I mean, I think, yes, polls, as you're pointing out here, even if they are generically showing the Republicans far behind the Democrats, let's run the election. Let's see what the American people have to say about it.
I think we're going to run the election. I'm fairly certain that that's going to take place. But given the disparity at the moment, do you think the Republican nominee should swift vote the Democratic nominee? One of the things, certainly, I think one of the reasons Barack Obama is getting some of the tread that he's got in this election campaign still comes out of that 2004 speech where he talked about we've got to stop talking about red America and blue America, that we're all Americans, and this partisanship has gone way too far. But in these election campaigns, do you think, I mean, as politicians, you're all politicians. If you're in a position where you got to win and you think you got the best candidate and the right philosophy and you're 4 percentage points behind, do you swift vote? Do you keep saying Obama cocaine, Obama cocaine, which he used when he was 15? But you know what I'm talking about.
We don't do that.
Swift vote, I believe that was 2004, and it came out of Texas from some Republicans. But do you do it? I mean,
I'll tell you right now, McCain would put his foot down and said, "I'm not going to win on a sham. I'm going to win based on my ideas, my experience, and what I believe in." And he said himself, "I'd rather lose an election than to do what's popular or what's going to hurt somebody." And so I don't think you'll see that from the McCain camp.
What do you think?
Yeah, not from Dr. Paul either. I mean, Dr. Paul, in his 20 years in the House, he was always very respectful. He very seldom, if ever, mentioned names. In this campaign, he talks about his ideas and his records. If he has differences of opinion, which he certainly does, he delivers that contrast with due respect to his colleagues who are on the stage. I don't see Dr. Paul doing that.
Oh, Giuliani, Street Fighter, you know. I mean,
yeah, you know those people in New York City.
He's a tough
polite they are over there.
He's a tough prosecutor.
Yeah. Certainly, I think, I mean, I would join both Ken and as well as Kim. I think Giuliani's campaign, he doesn't need to. He has a clear enough record as it is. I think it's a record that will stack up and stand up very well against any of the Democratic candidates. And I think as you go through the campaign thus far, I mean, if there is this attacking, this sort of swift voting, I think you see it far more from the Clinton and Obama camps on the Democratic side than you see on the Republican side.
We've only gotten started.
Yeah.
Given recent